Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Keith Silva, in for Fran Stoddard. There was a time not too long ago when the idea of having fresh, local produce in the middle of winter was unheard of. Now, thanks to hoop houses and improvements to washing and packing, local produce is being planted, grown, and harvested in Vermont year-round. I visited one of the early adopters of this business model to find out how it all fits together and what it means when you go to the grocery store. The snow remains piled up at the base of this hoop house at Jericho Settlers Farm. But inside,
it's about 80 degrees in here right now. We got the sides rolled up a little bit to get some fresh air in here.
Winter has become a prime time to plant, grow, and harvest vegetables at Jericho Settlers Farm, thanks to the 19 hoop houses that cover over 2 acres of land.
We kind of think of it as 3 seasons in those houses. Right now we're in the tail end of the winter season, so we transplant or seed a lot of winter greens, hardy crops like chard, kale, spinach, mesclun mix that we'll put in the ground late September, early October, and then that grows a little bit, and then it kind of slows down during that low light level period from, say, mid-November till mid-February. It doesn't really do much. You kind of bank that growth, and then right about now it's really taking back off again once we get above that 10 hours a day length. So there's always something in those houses growing.
Just like in the field, once one crop gets harvested, the next crop goes in. What's left over from harvesting gets turned back into the soil to add nutrients. Fashing built the farm's first hoop house about 20 years ago, when the concept of season extension was starting to catch on in the Northeast.
First thing we put up when we were fairly young as a business, I think within the first year or two, was a little greenhouse to start stuff. And then we added a small hoop house, a 20 by 90, little Quonset style, not great for snow load, but we loved what we could grow in there. And upgraded to bigger, wider, better structures over the years, and just kept adding on because the demand for local food was really taking off, and we wanted to capitalize on that and be able to extend our growing seasons, and a hoop house is a great way to do it. I encourage any new up-and-coming farmer to just throw in a hoop house structure and then just keep adding as time and money allow, because you can grow some incredible crops and some high-value crops in those houses.
Vegetable farmers know increasing production means upgrading the farm's wash pack and storage capabilities, what's referred to as post-harvest. Across the Fence was here in 2013 when Jericho Settlers Farm built this 45 by 85 foot wash pack facility. The design and implementation of efficiencies like wash tubs and tables with wheels and a washable poured concrete floor came from UVM Extension's expertise and knowledge in agriculture and food safety. Fashing credits the success of the farm to the relationship they've cultivated over the years with Extension.
I think we're very lucky in New England to have, Northeast SARE, UVM Extension. If you are all ears and want to experiment, the sky's the limit. And I'm amazed some days how far we've come. And I think we're at the point where we've kind of hit that sweet spot where we want to be, and maybe getting a little more specialized in some crops and some equipment just to get more efficient. Extension's also helped us with putting together in-ground heat for our big tunnels that we do our early tomato crops in. We never, once we got that information from UVM Extension, help and calculations on how to set things up, and we got that going, that kicked our early crops of tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers that we could get to market in, let's say, May to June, as opposed to not having a heated soil or heated air in these houses. You can't put them in until your frost-free date, which is typically maybe mid-May if you're lucky. And yeah, we wouldn't be where we're at today without all that help.
To safely store root crops, the temperature needs to be just above freezing with 90% humidity. Standing inside the cooler with Fashing is Andy Chamberlain, a technician with UVM Extension Agricultural Engineering.
Your wash pack area can expand as your business expands, but the need for a cooler comes up pretty quickly in the business. And having that space in order to store crops, even just a couple of days to get you to the farmer's market so you can harvest when the harvest needs to be done, and then store that for a couple days before you can take it to market, is really key.
The projects that Jericho Settlers Farm has implemented over the years with expertise from UVM Extension gets back to the consumer by creating a safe and healthy product.
A nicer facility creates more consistent product, creates higher quality products, and really reduces the risk posed to the consumer from any contamination. So having the right equipment in place and a facility that can be easily cleaned and maintained regularly really keeps the products fresh.
The carrots being stored in this cooler are an example of how the wash pack and storage facility create a safe, healthy, and sweeter product. The carrots were planted in early July. They grow outside all summer and into the fall. After a few frosts, they're harvested from late September until November. They're immediately washed, packed, and stored in optimum conditions. This effort improves the quality and makes the carrot taste sweeter than carrots grown in warmer regions of the country.
If you're going to go to the store and buy carrots that are not local, let's say they're coming out of California or Arizona, they're not cold enough in the ground to get very sweet under those conditions. But in the Vermont or New England, and you get a couple frosts in your roots, they sweeten up. All those starches start turning to sugar. And then you harvest them, and then you keep them in that cooler. You're just keeping all that sugar content in there. And super fresh, super local, organic in our case. Same goes for kales and greens that are grown in our hoop houses. As the season gets colder and colder, they get sweeter. I'll put kale and chard and greens grown in New England during the winter up against California produce or Mexico produce any day. The kales from California and Arizona and Mexico are not sweet. The ones grown in New England are like eating cotton candy. Frost and cold is our ally. It's kind of our one-up on these southern growing regions that have lots of land and great soil, but they can't compete with us on flavor.
The carrots, kales, and greens will last well into the following year when grown, washed, and packed under these conditions. Fashion credits UVM Extension with keeping losses at a minimum, which keeps customers coming back.
We've sold root crops into June, which is pretty amazing, and no loss of quality. In the beginning, we had loss of quality, but once we started working with UVM Extension on that and looking at the pieces of the puzzles that we needed to correct, with their help, the quality and consistency, and where we had a loss before, we have very little loss in our product, and that's money still in the bank. I mean, we got to eat to live. That's the bottom line. I think hoop house or greenhouse culture is going to continue. It's a protected environment that doesn't matter if it's raining outside or it doesn't matter if it's 10 degrees outside. I think that protected hoop house culture is going to continue.
As long as people still need to eat, hoop houses and wash pack facilities will continue to dot the landscape to keep the growing season going 24/7, 365. Joining me now via Zoom is Chris Callahan. He leads UVM Extension's agricultural engineering team. He's worked with farmers across New England to set up wash pack facilities and improve systems to grow crops year-round. Thanks for joining me, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Have hoop houses become as essential as tractors or other labor-saving devices for vegetable farmers looking to compete in today's marketplace?
They're certainly much more common than even 5 or 10 years ago. They provide a degree of protection that's hard to come by otherwise. They have some support from a USDA program as a conservation practice. And with increasing intense weather events, they're more and more important to vegetable farms. It seems like if you drive down Vermont Road and look left, you're likely to see round bales, and if you look right, you're likely to see a hoop house these days.
Very true. The wash pack facility at Jericho Settlers Farm is right-sized for their operations. When you consult with farmers on these facilities, what's the question you get asked the most?
The key questions are, what have other farmers done in my situation? And second after that is typically, what's the right layout to help me make the most out of my scarce resources, efficiency and labor, for example. And in this way, extension is certainly a bridge between research that's been done and practice on the farm. We're also a bridge between needs in communities and research to support those answers to those needs. But increasingly, a lot of our work is really facilitating learning communities. So connecting growers with other growers who have done similar work.
Nothing convinces someone what they need than what their neighbor's doing, or if their neighbor's already done it, or something like that. So that's been my experience working with Extension. You mentioned it briefly, hoop houses are kind of another way to combat climate change as well, right?
Yeah, certainly. I'm thinking back about maybe 6 years ago. I was talking with a grower, and it was particularly wet beginning of summer. And the grower kind of just said, what I need is a big umbrella for the field. And then turned around and said, oh, I guess that's what a hoop house is, so maybe I need more hoop houses. So certainly, as we have more intense weather events and just bigger swings in climate, conditions, it's a more and more important practice.
Just about a minute left, Chris. What are some of the up-and-coming trends for protected growing hoop houses that you see coming down the line the next 10 years?
Yeah, some of the trends in protected culture and hoop houses that I'm seeing have to do with things also related to climate change, increased pest pressure, new pests. And so we're looking into exclusion netting. So you saw in the video with Mark, the sides roll up and it's open air.
Right.
And so you want to have that protection and that ventilation, but you need some exclusion as well. The other thing we're looking into is more sustainable materials. It's a lot of plastic, and we're working on finding better ways of doing that.
How can someone get in touch with the UVM Extension Ag Engineering team?
Best way to get in touch with us is to go to go.uvm.edu/ageng, AGENG.
Excellent. Well, Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate you filling in the details on this very important subject and this very important part of Vermont agriculture.
Thank you, Keith.
I want to thank everyone here at WCAX for making this program possible, and as always, thank you for stopping by Across the Fence.